Oh, welcome to 2023. Happy New Year, you guys. First and foremost, just want to say I hope you had an amazing holiday time. You had some downtime. We totally shut things down between Christmas and New Year. That's become like a new tradition off social media. We did some traveling, feel totally refreshed and super excited to jump into 2023 with all of you. So I am honored to dive in to something special that we've created on the podcast just for you. Over the last few months, when we were recording content and creating content, I kind of drilled down to exactly what I think will serve you of the highest capacity as we set foot into the new year. When I was planning the podcast content for this year, I really reverse engineer things. So we start at the end of the year and reverse engineer, and we think about the journey that we want to take our clients on. So it's very holistic in purpose. It's not willy-nilly. And I try to put myself into your shoes, the listener's shoes. And I know right now there's probably a lot of New Year energy and a lot of focus around organization and getting your stuff together and New Year's resolutions and planning and goal setting. And I think that curates two things. I think all those things are extremely valuable. And yes, we utilize them in our business and in our personal life. And I think they're really fantastic because they're expansive in nature. They keep you moving forward. Sometimes though that contrast feels like, am I doing enough? Am I where I'm supposed to be? And what I want to say about all of those things is they're lovely and also not useful simultaneously. And here's why. The reason we don't actually get results that we set out to create is because we get in our own way. So the best laid plans, you can have the perfectly marketed schedule for next year. You can do all the right things, quote unquote. However, if you are not doing the internal work, the clearing work, the personal growth work, the thought auditing work, then you will struggle to execute even the best laid plans. And so I want to serve you that as we kickstart the new year. So it's crazy to think that the very things that we consciously want, that we verbalize outside of ourselves, that we are chasing, that we both consciously and unconsciously often block ourselves from actually having. Like the things we want, we get in our way of having. I'm like, well, how does that even work? Right? It doesn't even seem like it's common sense. If I want something, you'd think that I would never set foot in the way of having it. And I'm like, what in the actual F? And this is something that I studied with clients and really was, so pivotal in the progression of my own business, is because I could see this happening. I'm like, they're telling me they want to do this and yet this is not happening. So it's really the science and study of psychology of adherence. So why in the hell do we actually do this? And so this is what the 4-part series that kickstarts today, so welcome to day 1, is all about. So we are doing this 4-part series called How to Get Out of Your Own Way in 2023. And today we're talking about exposing your gaps. And I want to help you get out of your own way this year. I want to help you actually follow through on the things you said you're going to do. And in fact, I guess I'll just boil down this. I think this is what I boil down coaching to, both what I do as a coach, but really what all coaches do, depending on the results might look a little different. The container for coaching might look a little different, but ultimately, here's what I think. I help my clients and my listeners like you and whoever else wants to listen to me get out of their own way. Right? And we do that in coaching with lots of modalities, but we're trying to help you tap into what's holding you back and how are you going to, catalyze yourself to get there. So today is part 1, and we're going to look at your gaps, and I'm going to give you like a fast track that I use with my clients to help them expose what's really holding them back. And you're going to be like, mind blown in just a moment. And I'm going to be giving you some homework. So if you don't typically listen consistently, I really want you to tune in. So today is day one. On Friday, we normally release our coaching clinic episodes. For the next 2 weeks, these are going to be part of the 4-part series. So today and Friday comes part 1 and 2. The following week, the second week of January, comes part 3 and 4 for a culminating total of 4 episodes, which lead right into a live 3-day training event that I want to share with you so that you can head on over and get signed up now. So we are hosting also a free live virtual training series called How to Retrain Your Brain for Success and Help Your Clients Do the Same, right? All about getting out of your own way. And that is January 17th through the 19th. I will be there live every single day at 10 a.m. You can sign up at amanda-walker.com/retrain your brain. And we will give you all the details, where to go, the links. We will give you all the notes and all the preparations so that you can really contribute maximally. And this isn't just about you. This is about you because I do believe that we can only take our clients as far as we've taken ourselves. But this is actually about you helping your clients have better results, because I know you're the kind of coach who wants to master the art of coaching and who wants to find like ways to just be better at coaching and to support your clients at a deeper level. So again, you can sign up for that training at amanda-walker.com/retrain your brain. But coming back into the episode, this is what you can expect the next couple of weeks because it'll look just slightly different. Before we dive in though, I want to give a really great example of how an unrelated example really reminds me of how we operate in our lives. My kids years ago, we began the process of like teaching them how to do chores and take care of the house and add to responsibilities of being a contributor of the house. And one of the things that I taught them, of course, is how to clean. So how to wipe down countertops, mirrors, how to dust, how to clean the toilets, how to fold the laundry, all of those skills that I think are critical to them being able to be self-sufficient on their own and support us around the house. And I remember one morning I had, I can't remember the exact details of what cleaning solution or whatever, but I had been using some sort of solution, I think, that we had to squirt. And as I was demonstrating with my son, the bottle ran out. And so after I demonstrated and showed him how to use everything, in order for him to take over and do his part, he needed like a fresh bottle. So I passed the fresh bottle to him. He goes on, he's smart, is so full of like pride because he's like gonna do this new thing. And he's the sweetest kid. And he like is very diligent and very detailed when he helps in the household chores. And so I let him go on his own, but I'm still kind of watching from afar so that if needed, I can totally intervene and support him. So I see him and he's like trying to shake the container and nothing comes out. I don't remember if it was a squirt bottle too or a squeeze bottle, but essentially there's like no liquid coming out of this container. And he is looking at it and it's like going on like a little bit longer than I really thought. And I had this internal battle. I realized right away there was probably some sort of cover over where the liquid was coming out, so there wasn't a spill. And I was vacillating like, okay, should I like intervene and go help him? Or should I just like let him figure some stuff out on his own? And ultimately I was like, I'm not going to be there to solve all of his problems all the time. So I'm just going to let him figure it out. So finally he realizes like, oh, maybe I should unscrew the top. And so he unscrews the top. And in doing so, realizes like that freed up the entire bottle to work, right? He was totally getting in his own way. He was kind of avoiding trying to take the easy way out, right? And just do it fast. And like, why wouldn't it work? And then when that happened, he realized like, oh, and now he's figured that out. He can't unlearn that. So moving forward, he will always remember if the bottle doesn't work, and it's probably because maybe something on the inside, it hasn't been opened, right? So what a powerful learning tool, a learning curve that will help him be successful for the rest of his life. Tiny, but important. I really map this across to where so many of you have experienced. It's like you're right there, you're almost there, you're in the act, but there's this little thing, this little covering, this little like block that's right standing between you and what you want. And often what we want to do is we want to get there fast and strong and we want the easy way. And that is helpful. And we can have guides in our journey to help get us there and we can learn. But how powerful for him to take and peel that thing off, because he will never make that same mistake. And that's what I want to help you do throughout this series is I want to help you peel back the layers, the coverings that are helping you from accessing the thing that you most desire. Cool? How about we do that? Would that be nice? The thing about actioning and taking action is that as we're taking action, and if it doesn't happen for us, it's much easier for us to blame stuff outside of us, to blame people, to blame circumstances, to blame environments, for us to not take ownership. Because if we're honest with each other, like it's kind of like an ego hit. It's a very much an ego thing when we have to take full ownership for not getting something. And so it's easier, it's nicer and kinder and gentler on our ego if we don't have to take full responsibility. But the problem with that is when we don't take full responsibility, we also don't give ourselves the full opportunity to access the full potential of results. Right? So it's so much easier to say, it's that season, it's the kids, it's the la 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 time. After all, like, why would we knowingly stop ourselves from having everything we want? And sometimes unknowingly is where the sneakiest form of self sabotage comes in. And that's where we have to dig a little deeper. And that's why I love coaching, is because when we have a third party helper, guide, mentor, they get to see that way faster, because when we're in it, again, we can't read the label from outside, from inside the bottle. And so we hire somebody to come on outside of us to help us read our own label. So you might be asking or wondering, like, okay, Amanda, sounds great. Help me see my gaps. Like, let's make this tangible. So that's really what I want to do. So we're going to do 2 practices here. And if you're unable to, if you're listening and driving or you're unable to stop, then I would encourage you to just do this practice. It's a quick practice on your own at a separate time. If you're able to right now, I would even just invite you to take a pause, close your eyes, and follow along. But for a moment, I just want you to close your eyes, and I want you to allow your mind to take you back to a place, back into the past, back into a place, and connect with maybe your 5 or 6 or 7-year-old self. And I want you to allow a positive memory, a positive experience that comes to mind. And I want you to allow that time and place to come to mind, and just notice how it makes a picture in your mind. And I'm actually doing this as we're talking myself. And just go ahead and notice how a picture comes up out in front of you. And I want you to pay attention to that picture, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes. But I want you to really notice the feeling that's present there. I'm just going to tell you what's coming up for me as I record. I'm immediately taken back to our first house. We had a carport, and my parents had a silver Monte Carlo. And I was an only child growing up because my siblings were much older. So I played by myself a lot, and I was in love with Barbies. I had all the Barbies and all the little like shops and restaurants. And one day I remember I just decided I was going to go outside and I was going to use the trunk of my parents' car and set up like Barbie land in there. And I just all of a sudden have this memory of like this sunny day and just playing so content and using my imagination to like just dream this entire setup happening with all of my Barbies. And so just notice what's coming up for you in that place, and just think back to just being a child and how you gave yourself permission to dream, to imagine, to use your imagination with blocks, with Barbies, with toys, with games, with G.I. Joes, with Legos, with friends, with capes, with dress up, with tea time, with cooking. I don't know what it was for you. But if you just take yourself back to that 5, 6, 7-year-old self, I think we could all admit that the access and the freedom and the permission to access our dream muscle and our imagination was limitless. And here's a question I'd like you to ask yourself now. Have you ever asked yourself what stopped you from tapping into that now? And I don't want to hear the surface response of life. The surface response is not sufficient enough, but like go deeper. Like what stopped you? Was it time? Was it having kids? Was it starting a family, like a job? And no matter what your response is, my guess is, though, we could probably boil it down to a decision that you made, that you decided, and we drilled down into clarity, And what we would likely come up with is that you have gotten in your own way from allowing the dream, from allowing acquisition and pursuit of that dream. And so we're going to continue that practice. And here's what I really would love for you to do from homework after this episode before we move into the next is we all have blind spots. And the reason we're going to talk a lot about goal setting and not like generic kind of, I don't want to call it lame goal setting, but the importance of goal setting on the next part, on part 2. But now what I want you to do is I want you to bring to mind the goal that you have for this year. And it doesn't have to be super fancy as we're listening to this goal, but let's just say you have a revenue goal for your business. You're like, I'm going to hit 6 figures. So $100,000 is your goal. Maybe you've already hit that and now you're at 200,000. Maybe it's to find your first clients this year. Maybe it's to speak on a stage this year. Maybe it's to pitch and be on 5 podcasts this year. Whatever it is, and if you have multiples, I just want you to go ahead and bring one to mind because we're going to expose your gap right now. I do this with my clients and learnings and trainings and teachings all the time because this is the fastest way to expose your gaps, to expose what's standing in your way. And I would totally encourage you to journal this as well. And hey, kiddos, can we take the volume down, please?
And then you hit me with a knife.
Okay, out. Okay, out and quiet, please. Thank you. Okay, clearly, Steve, we will just edit that out as I tell my children to be quiet. So now what I want you to think about is your goal, one of them. And as you think about that goal, what we're going to do is actually double it. So if your revenue goal was 100K, I want you to double it to 200K. If your goal is to speak on a stage of 100 people, I want you to double it to 200. If your goal is to speak on 5 podcasts, I want you to double it to 10. And I want you to notice immediately inside what the little voice inside your brain says. I want you to write it down, write them all down. If I have 1 minute to coach somebody, you betcha I'm asking them this question because this is a fast track to their gaps and to their where they're limiting their potential and the thoughts and the belief systems that are stopping them. So if you immediately like, that's too hard, that's impossible, I can't do that, I'll never find the answer, I don't know how, then this is where you're blocking yourself and this is where you are standing in your own way. And if you want something different, you have to do something different. You can no longer just escape those things. You can't ignore them. You can't avoid them. You can't out-hustle them. But many of us don't even realize that that's actually what's going on because we haven't really taken the time to expose the gaps and to become more aware. And I know you've heard the cliche, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And in some regards, I really do believe that's true. I don't make a rule of that. But if you ignore what's underneath it and don't expose what's really holding you back and the gap that exists, then it doesn't give you an opportunity to create a solution. And I'm going to be teaching more of this inside the live training. You're going to be able to ask me questions. It's live coaching. It's a lot of really fantastic stuff that is piggybacked off of this 4-part series. But I'm actually going to go into further detail. I'm going to make it super applicable for you in the moment and how you can use the strategies that I teach inside that 3-day live training for your clients. So head on over to amanda-walker.com/retrain your brain. And remember, the goal of that training is to help you be unstoppable no matter like what the circumstances of the world are, where you're at in your journey, so that you can create success and get out of your own way in 2023. So part 1 helps you see, where am I standing in my way? We're exposing your gaps. And I'm going to join you back here in just a few days for part 2 of the 4-part series, How to Retrain Your Brain in 2023. And if you have any questions as you maneuver through this 4-part series, or you also feel like you have some really big aha nuggets, I really appreciate when my listeners share that with me. Do me a favor, if you're listening to this right now, could you make a screenshot and just share it in your stories or share it on your social media so that more people can participate in this 4-part training? Because I truly, my mission, if you haven't heard me talk about it, is I want to help 1 million coaches and service providers serve 1,000 clients. And I know I can't do that all through one-to-one teaching. And that's why I have the podcast, so I can serve 1 million people. And the way we reach more people is by people that are already listening and sharing it with friends and colleagues and on their social, because let's face it, social is such an amazing way to really spread positive impact towards people. So I will be joining you right back here for part 2 in just a couple days of this series. So again, thank you and happy 2023.